The recording has just been started. So you will find the recording on the website, and there you will be able to watch it again if you need to. It should be going live in the upcoming days. So welcome everyone again, and let's have a closer look at the agenda. So as you can see, we will first of all be giving a brief overview of both the call and the topics, where we will also have an interview, or rather a little panel sessions with all of our pathway coordinators, and they will tell us a little bit more about the process and also the reasons and also the topics and so on and the pathways. So that will be very interesting because you will be able to hear from them live their answers. Afterwards, we'll dive a little bit deeper into the general information on the call, and we will also be looking at helpful tips and tricks for your proposal writing and so on. And finally, we will also be looking at the matchmaking platform a little bit more. Most of you should already be on it because obviously you found the event there, but in case you got here through a Zoom link, you will be given an introduction as well. And then after that, it's time for the Q&A session, as I said. And at the end, I will give you a little bit of an outlook on what's to come and what dates to watch out for and so on. All right. So for the next slide, please. Yeah. So a brief overview on our call. So this year you can see we have 28 participating countries who are co-funding this call along with the European Commission. In total, we have a partnership of more than 65 partners, which includes different types of organizations, as you can see on the slide. And overall, we have an approximate budget until 2028 of 450 million euros. And this year we have more than 65 million euros of budget from the co-funding countries. Additionally, also the European Commission has set aside a budget for about 37 million euros for the first two calls, which is the co-fund that we receive from the European Commission. A quick word on our vision. Next slide, please. Yeah, so our vision, as you can see, it revolves around giving local stakeholders of whatever kind, so this could be cities or businesses or even citizens, the chance to use global strategies and turn them into local actions to tackle the challenges that they're facing in their local communities. So we want to connect and also obviously give them the chance to localize. Next slide, please. All of this and more can be found in the strategic roadmap. So if you want to have a look at it, this can be found both in the QR code, but also just on our website, which is www.thepartnership.eu, but I'm sure you've already seen it. So yeah, you can find the roadmap on the website as well. And in the next slide, you can see a quick overview on what we do. So you can see that there are many different programs and also measures that we take and have set up and are engaging in on many different levels, both on stakeholder as well as research communities or whatever. So many different levels. So I won't go into any detail on this because we don't have that much time. But as you can see from the inner circle, it all is based on the free transition pathways that we are focusing on. So let's take a really quick look at these before we get into our panel session with the pathway coordinators. So the first one, next slide please, is the 15-minute city pathway. I will just give you a very brief overview, like I said, and then we'll talk to the pathway coordinators, and also details on the pathways and on the corresponding topics can be found in the call text as well, which you can already find on the website. So first of all, we have the 15-minute city pathway, which focuses mostly on the challenges that are inherent to urban mobilities, and it takes a very holistic approach. So it's not hindered by for example, geographical boundaries or anything like that. The focus lies on finding different attractive ways to move ahead with the mobility transition, which to sum up means that established paradigms should both be shifted and avoided. And in this pathway, we have 4 important key areas, as you can see on the screen. A quick look at the topics. Next slide, please. Yeah, that's the 4 key areas. Thank you. Now, the next slide, please. Thank you. Is that we have, once again, 3 new topics in this. So we have 3 topics, and they're not the same as last year's, is what I wanted to say. And in these topics, you can apply with your projects. So, be sure to check them out. As I said, the details can be found in the call, and we will be talking to our pathway coordinators in a bit. But as you can see, the focus lies both on integrated policies as well as on involving people to make sure that nobody gets left behind and it's all fair. And this could be, for example, done by raising awareness for sustainable transportations. Then the next pathway is the PET pathway. Next slide, please. So the positive energy district pathway looks at the energy side, so to speak, and the goals are energy efficient and energy flexible urban areas which manage renewable energy and have a net zero carbon emission balance. Energy quality is also an important topic here. So obviously to secure an energy supply for everyone involved, to make sure that, that cities are sustainable in all three sustainability pillars. So that's both economic and of course environmental, but also social. Next slide, please. So also here as well, we have 3 new topics this year. And again, the details can be found in the call text where there's a chapter for each pathway. But this pathway aims to create a society that is both energy resilient and also focuses again on leaving nobody behind, because energy transition needs to happen also both in new environments and in transforming the existing built environment. It's also quite important, obviously, to finance this transition. So one of the topic focuses on this as well. Then for the third and last, but not least transition pathway, next slide, please. So we have circular urban economies. This pathway focuses on regenerative urbanism. So that means that it's important to both restore the natural cycles in the city and also thereby increase the quality of life for its inhabitants, but also to transform urban spaces into something sustainable and healthy spaces and inclusive and attractive spaces via applying regenerative design principles. So this pathway as well has 4 key areas. I think, yeah, there you go, which you can see on the slide. So, and the 3 topics, next slide, please, for this one are obviously all new as well, and you can see them on the slide. And you can see the focus lies on utilizing the existing built environment by recycling and reusing also, and by refurbishing and renovating. So it's also important to have a connection between cities and rural areas and to integrate nature into cities, which is also one of the topics this year. And with that very brief introduction, which again, you can find details in the call text as always, we would now jump into our panel with the pathway coordinators. So I think we will stop sharing and maybe see all 3 of our coordinators. Hi, Christoph.
Hi.
Hi, Anne. So that's our coordinator for Q for the 3rd pathway, and Christoph is for positive energy districts. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
And we need Maxi. Yeah.
And we need Maxi. That's last but not least our pathway coordinator for the 15-minute city. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I hope everyone's having a good morning. And I think maybe since we are not that well with the time, so we don't have that much time is what I wanted to say. Maybe let's jump straight into it. So I think the first interesting question that I'm sure everyone is asking is, how did you arrive at this year's call topics? How did you come up with that?
If I may start with that, yeah, good morning, everybody. Great to see so many people interested in the call. Well, the call topics, you know, the main goal of the DUT partnership, or the overarching goal, and that is to support cities in tackling the most urgent transformation that is needed to be sustainable in the future. So this is kind of the basic guideline for identifying the key topics for the 3 transition pathways. We need integrated approaches, comprehensive approaches, impact-oriented approaches. So that's the basic guideline. We have quite an extensive scoping process that lasts 3/4 of a year almost. We have already started the process for the next call that builds on 3 or 4 main inputs or main consultation areas. That's first of all an extensive consultation process with the key stakeholder groups. We have different formats for that. For example, the DUT City Panel, where we work together with a big group of European cities to identify their key challenges. We have what we call the Agora dialogues, where we have a broader stakeholder community brought together discussing similar things like the key challenges in the 3 thematic focus areas of the partnership. We do align quite extensively also with other initiatives and partnerships, like, for example, the Mission Platform, Net Zero Cities, the Global Covenant of Mayors, the Belmont Forum, Mission Innovation, neighboring partnerships or initiatives like the CETP, the Clean Energy Transition Partnership, or the Biodiversa. So we have workshops with them to align, to discuss the most burning issues that they also see in the development of the 3 transition pathways. We have been developing a multi-annual call agendas also for the 3 transition pathways in our DUT roadmap, which is downloadable on our website. That gives us a rough framework for how we see in the long run the development of the call topics. So that gives an indication where we are heading to with the next call. Basically, it's really identifying the most burning issues at the moment. And of course, we also align the topics or the priorities with the national policies of our DUT partners. So that's basically the main stream of how we got to these topics.
Thank you. That's very, so the bottom line is very much teamwork, as well as obviously, you know, keeping up to date with everything that's happening. Thank you very much. So speaking of the topics, maybe let's jump into the next question. What do you want to highlight for each of your transition pathways topics? And you know, feel free to elaborate. Who wants to start? Let's maybe, because she's next to me in my screen, let's maybe start with Anne. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I can start. Hi, everyone. I just want to also say it's great to see so many of you here today interested in this call. So I've been working, I'm the coordinator, one of the coordinators, along with my colleague Bjorn Velsen from Formas, the Q coordinator. And so the Q transition pathway, which stands for Circular Urban Economies, we see what I'd like to highlight for this year is that we see some similarities with the call to last year in terms of the topics, but there's also some new focuses for this year. So what's a continuation maybe from last year is that we see, for example, in the topic this year, planning and designing urban areas with nature. We have a continued focus on regenerative urbanism and nature-based solutions. And also we see a continued focus on flows and interconnections between urban and rural and peri-urban areas. But maybe new for this year is there's a greater emphasis on the built environment as a resource base and the role, for example, of the building and construction sectors. Across the Q topics too, there is a new focus on the cultural and creative sectors, and architecture and design, for example, are crucial for expected outcomes.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. Then since we started with the pathway 3, let's go to 2, and that is Christoph, I think.
Okay. For the PAT transition pathway, it's always a question or a challenge. How do we combine or how do we balance technological aspects with process-oriented aspects? Also for the other 2 transition pathways, maybe with the energy part, it's even more prominent. We're trying to focus on the process orientation. So on the how, we believe that the technologies are, a lot of them are already there. We need to further develop, but it's really the most tricky question as we perceive it is how can cities and urban stakeholders be enabled to actually perform this transition process. Also, the PET topics are sort of a continuation of previous calls or the previous DUT call, especially the focus on the existing urban structure, topic 2, where we see that this is one of the most pressuring issues to be tackled, because it really touches also the whole definition of the PET concept. Can we achieve an urban energy surplus in existing areas? So the topic 2 is on the transformation of the energy infrastructure, while considering all the aspects that are needed, social impacts, design impacts, etc., that are so important in existing structures. How do we mobilize the local residents or the local actors to take part in these kind of processes? These are kind of tricky challenges that probably will come up in one or the other form, and also the next calls. One of the most burning questions of the last year was the energy crisis. An obvious entry point for kind of pushing the development in terms of the energy transition and the local energy transition, where PED is focusing on. So the first topic is on how can we maintain the resilience by shaping models of local development interconnected with the regional or national systems. How can we ensure a secure energy system and at the same time apply approaches that are socially sound and address the risk of energy poverty and well, avoid energy poverty in the end. So a rather big question where we need projects to get a better feel on what different ways, what different focuses we can have here. And the third topic, Teresa mentioned it already before, it's also an ongoing issue to develop not only investment models, sustainable investment models, but also more in general collaboration modes between the key stakeholder groups, like, for example, city administrations, the real estate sector that is only slowly getting on board, I would say, and then we need to mobilize here much more and find models of cooperation. And as a third party, the utilities, the service providers, energy providers, to have them on board and find models in the public-private realm together of investment, of sustainable investment in the energy transition. These 3 topics hopefully cover some key aspects of the development. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Christoph. So last but not least, again, Maxi, go ahead. Tell us about the 15-minute city topics.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. Good to see so many of you. When talking about the 50-minute city transition pathway, I always like to mention that we mainly use the 50-minute city concept to help kind of bringing the topics of mobility transition to practice, and especially focusing them on a neighborhood level, and really this proximity-oriented local concept that helps us pushing measures of mobility transition. So this year we decided to concentrate once more, I have to say, similar to last year, on the bigger issues and challenges that were brought to us and that we scoped together with city administrations and urban doers to push measures of mobility transition and to plan for climate neutral cities. So I would just very quickly go over the topics, because I think there's a lot of information online and more specific, more detailed descriptions. But basically the main question behind the first topic is we see quite of a need to better understand the interactions of different mobility policies. We know a lot what to do for sustainable mobility in cities, but we don't understand yet and cannot assess yet the effects of these policies and see kind of really what is the co-benefits, but also kind of the cost-benefit analysis that usually is a bit hard for sustainable mobility measures. So we want to discuss there kind of case studies, overviews, but also deep dives into specific measures and the assessment of what we can expect from applying one or the other in a specific context. The second topic is more focused on basically the role of the 50-minute city concept as an ambitious agenda for social infrastructure neighborhoods. So we discuss how to strengthen local functions and local structures through planning and mobility policies. We want to critically reflect also proximity-oriented policies if they actually help us achieving our aims of climate neutral cities, and see basically where this leads us, bring it far also into application when we talk about, or reflection when we talk about urban resilience, and so on. So this is our topic where we really focus on the neighborhood as the place of implementation. The third topic is more directed towards understanding better the question of how can we give people a place and offer them a part in the efforts, in the kind of encompassing public efforts for an ambitious mobility transition. So that's more on involving people, empowering people in a transition, but also exploring further different mobility cultures and what we can learn from them, and also cross-sectoral measures. Can we, for example, understand driving a car similar as smoking in the consequences of doing it excessively, and also in kind of how we understand and rebrand it. So there are many things that we want to take up, always kind of try to make it as relevant as possible for urban practice. I think I speak for all the free transition pathway when I say that we want to focus on different areas, different examples, kind of go wide and far beyond the usual suspects. For example, have a look at small and mid-sized cities instead of always looking at the good old top 10 cities, and really kind of go there where it is challenging for implementation in these topics.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's very, very good to get a glimpse behind the scenes that maybe, you don't get from the call text if you're just reading it. So thank you very much, all three of you. And maybe the next question could be just, what is your understanding of innovation and also sustainability? These are two words that we hear all the time. And also, how is this articulated in the DUT activities?
Yes, I can answer this.
Thank you, Anne.
DUT, or Driving Urban Transitions, is quite unique in that it has a broad understanding of innovation and everybody is welcome. It is aimed at all kinds of innovation, from technological but also social, procedural, process innovation, organizational, institutional, systematic. And it's at both a larger scale but also at local urban settings. As Maxi was saying, we would like to see a range of cities involved at different sizes in this call. And it's innovation that's needed to transform neighborhoods and urban areas. There are two different types of approaches, research and innovation, in this call. And both of them can be suggested for all topics. And none of the topics favor one research or innovation type over the other. And research and innovation should be seen as a continuum for most, and most projects will probably be a mix of both and have some innovation. As part of driving urban transitions, we see that policies, practices, processes, services, or products could be developed that could be of commercial value, but equally welcome innovation directed at public governance, management, and operation. And urban innovation should be carried out in close collaboration with stakeholders. Likewise, to innovation, we see sustainability as encompassing. We see it as a multifaceted property that describes the extent to which the social, economic, and environmental objectives are in balance, that economic activity isn't declining, and that non-renewable resource outputs are minimized, and that society has a high capital and is cohesive, equitable, and inclusive.
Thank you very much, Anne. And since you already mentioned cities of different sizes, maybe let's go to the question of who is even welcome to apply to this call. So who can apply specifically?
May I pick this up?
Go ahead.
Well, it's been said before, we're focusing very much on transdisciplinary comprehensive approaches. It is kind of an imperative for applying to this call that you bring together a consortium of different types of stakeholders. So it's public authorities, it's companies, it's NGOs, it's civil society projects. So really, but also from the science background, social sciences, of course, engineering, also social sciences, humanities, etc. There is really a strong goal for the calls that we can provide with the project solutions or offers for solutions that consider a variety of different factors, and with that help the impact orientation, and provide kind of feasible solutions for urban stakeholders or the cities themselves. So transdisciplinarity is a key part of applying for the call. There was one question in the Q&A if a water utility is also welcome to apply for the call. Of course it is. It's not only about public authorities. It is really about, actually, we're asking for as many as possible private practical partners in the consortia. We know it's not so easy, and we always try to put incentives to make it possible for smaller entities also to be part of the consortium. So that's this broad approach. Of course, at the core, we need, and this is a mandatory thing for applying to this call, we need the cities themselves in the projects. So we need, and with cities we mean city administrations or urban companies. So entities that are clearly connected to the concrete urban development of a city. We need the practical input. We need the kind of the consultation with the cities on what is needed for them, and provide the basis also for a good or a better cooperation between public authorities and the private sector or NGOs and research and innovation.
Thank you. Thank you, Christoph. Yeah, and since you mentioned the question in the chat, like you said, water entity is totally welcome to apply. The only thing I might have to add here is to always make sure to check your national annex to make sure your funding agency that's responsible for you also, funds you. Transnationally, totally okay. But we will get to that later on. So I just wanted to, quickly interject here. But thank you very much, Christoph. And since you did mention cities, and since this is a quick obviously of driving urban transitions, it's a very big focus. Maybe let's get to the question, how can cities even benefit from participating in this call? So what is the benefits?
Yeah, I can answer that one.
Thank you.
And to follow on from what Christoph was saying about who can apply, well, cities are core to not only this call, but the whole Driving Urban Transitions Partnership. And the partnership has a commitment to urban and regional and city authorities broadly, and their capacity building in terms of ambitious policy making and implementation. And the core to this is that cities have a chance to test something out, maybe that is outside of their usual activities, and this call provides a possibility to engage cities in the research and innovation projects and ensure that the outcomes of the call are most relevant for cities. And it's also we have a question in the chat as well. Is it compulsory to have a city in the consortium? Or is a consortium with a regional authority and a few smaller municipalities also eligible? And it is a prerequisite of the call that projects include one city urban government authority in their consortia. Therefore, cities are core and highly desirable participants. And there are broad definitions in the call text about what is a city or a municipality, and as Teresa said, about who can apply in which country, which is outlined in the national annexes. But we do also have a very broad definition of what a city is. And Christoph has already mentioned, for example, the city panel, and as well as the call, we have activities around the Driving Urban Transitions Partnership, such as the city panel and other events like the Agora events, where it's also an opportunity for cities to network and also share their experiences as well. So there are just some of the advantages
Thank you.
participating in.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so it definitely, like, it is driving urban transition. So obviously we want to benefit the cities. Is the bottom line, I think. And thank you very much. And like Anne said, there is we do have a very broad definition of what the city in the consortium has to be. So it could be a public a municipality, enterprise, or whatever too. But we will get to this later on as well. So this will be in the next part. So don't worry. We will get to this later on as well again. But thank you, Anne, for the answer. And maybe let's move to the other side of consortium. Maybe why is this call relevant for researchers? Can you tell me that as well?
Yeah, I'll take this one up fairly.
Thank you.
A part, I would say, for the more obvious reasons of providing money. I think kind of based on what we hear from researchers in our community, I would highlight two things. First of all, DUT plays a rather special role, kind of a bit different to other funding programs, research innovation funding programs, is that first of all, projects that are part of driving urban transitions are part of a wider network. We really give our best to connect projects between each other and create spaces of learning. This can, for example, go towards reflecting together approaches and methods, especially for projects that tackle similar issues or are at different stages, which will be relevant for DUT as we are building quite of a massive project portfolio with about 15 projects per transition pathway per year. It's kind of, we offer this part of this network and of this exchange. On the other hand, I believe that in driving urban transitions, we also provide researchers kind of in the topics of transitions, of urban transitions, with a close connection to implementation practice. So the calls are really oriented to cross-disciplines and to cooperate between different forms of stakeholders that we have, I think, heard quite several times already. And I think through this, it makes it possible to apply, try out, and test ideas, practices, and products in real life. So kind of these learnings should really go towards that. And I think that this connection between science and policy, and this perspective of stakeholders' needs, getting to understand them better and profiting from these diverse inputs is also one big and relevant contribution of DUT for researchers.
Thank you, Maxi. So I think this is all the questions I have for you today. And I thank you very, very much for this look behind the scenes and for being here, and for the beautiful pathways and topics, obviously. I'm sure we'll get very, very many interesting projects out of them. And yeah, thank you again for answering my questions and for the panel and for being here. And I think now, since we have already had quite a few questions, we will move on to the general part of the formal part, so to speak, of the call rules. And so we would have to share the slides again and unpin our coordinators. Thank you again for being here. And yeah, enjoy the audience. And also, guys, look into the Q&A while I still have you here, and see if you can maybe answer some of the pathway related questions as well. That would be great. All right.
So thank you, Teresa. And
yeah, so
I have
Paul
to
is
say,
taking over.
It's wonderful to see so many people interested in the call. And after, well, we are flooded in questions. No worries if we don't have time to answer them right away. We will answer them in the Q&A. But onwards to the more boring part, so to speak, the call timelines, the rules, and also how to apply. So kicking you off, we have quite a few countries involved. We had some questions in chat already. Is it possible with EU and non-EU countries? We actually have both supporting the call. And even if your country is not on the list, you could always join a project as a cooperation partner, meaning a non-funded partner. But as you might remember from the last time, this list of countries is quite long, but not every funding agency in every country can actually support every research type, every organization, every pathway, and every topic. So it's essential to look into Annex A in the call text, where you find Table 1 and 2 for an overview on the funding agencies and what kind of actions and topics and organizations they can support, as well as the detailed description of the conditions of every funding agency. When building consortia, you might also have a look at the national budgets and the number of projects that they can fund, as to estimate how tight the national budget might get. We are also planning on publishing, well, an estimation of budget demands versus available budget for the call 2023, and this will be published in the next weeks. But in the meantime, you might have a look at the old call, the call 2022, because we published a number of projects that were suggested for funding there, and this also gives you a nice impression on how success rates actually look like. Well, I'm always talking about Annex A. How do you actually find it? It's under funding opportunities, and then you have the call 2022 and the call 2023, and also the Urban Endurance Grant, and you find all and any information on the new call, the call 2023, on the website, and also any update to the call text will be published there and will be made available, as well as the information you're receiving today. So what does the timeline look like? We're happy to have launched the call on September 1st, giving you more time this year. Today we're at Info Day 1. On October 10th, we will have a second Info Day that will focus mainly on matchmaking. And the first important deadline is November 21st, when you have to submit your pre-proposals, which then will hopefully be invited into the second stage in February, and you will have time until April 30th to submit your full proposal. Hopefully in July, you will receive, well, the announcement, or your main applicant will receive the news that your project has been selected for funding or suggested for funding, and then national decisions and the contracting phase will kick off, and your project then can start in September until January 2025. So hopefully within 1 year, you will be able to start your project. Onwards to, well, some more basic indications. So this is, as the timeline suggests, a two-stage process with a pre-proposal stage and a full proposal stage. Please also always contact your local funding agency, your national funding agency, your regional agency, because in many cases, a national submission is mandatory, and it depends on the national or regional rules when you need to submit it. It can be before the transnational deadline, it can be after the transnational deadline. So always make sure to check that, and I would always suggest to contact your NCP, your national contact person, at your regional or national agency. So I think we have quite a few questions also who actually can apply, and we already discussed that up for a bit. So of course, urban government authorities can apply, research organizations can apply, companies can apply, social and the creative sector, artists and designers can apply, and of course, civil society representatives can apply, NGOs, NPOs, and all of them. So basically any legal entity can apply, but this of course is not true for any and each country. I think there was one question in chat that i.e. the Spanish agency actually can't support cities. So please, once again, check Annex A, contact your national and regional funding agency to make sure that you are within their rules and stay eligible, and that your consortium then stays eligible. Well, we're always talking about those rules, and what are they? So the main applicant, I think I mentioned that quite a few times today already, is a project partner that receives funding, and she is responsible for coordinating and managing the project and also the proposal. And we as call secretariat will communicate mainly with the main applicant. So every information on the transnational side normally ends up with the main applicant. Co-applicants are project partners or applicants that are not the main applicants and are eligible for funding from the funding agency and also apply for funding from the funding agency. Well, if you are not eligible to receive funding from a funding agency that is a partner in the DUT Call 2023, you might join as a cooperation partner. What this means is you're actually bringing your own finance. You're not receiving any funding from a funding agency, but want to partake in the consortium. And this is a way to include cities, for instance, in countries that actually can't fund cities. Or it's also an easier way for small partners to join a project and consortium, simply because sometimes it doesn't actually pay off to go through all the national requirements and loopholes if you only want to gather information from the project if your contribution isn't that large. And as a fourth point, and it's very important to distinguish between basically project partners and principal investigators, PIs. Those are not organizations, but the persons responsible for the project implementation within an organization that applies for funding or is a cooperation partner. So the PIs actually are the persons, not the organizations. This is very important because there is a limit on how often you may apply from the transnational side, not for the organization. So you could apply for 200 projects as an organization, but there's a limit on how often you may apply as a PI, as a principal investigator, as a person within the DUT Call from the transnational side. Of course, regional and national rules might limit these limits further. So, well, what kind of R&D activities are we looking for? So you basically start off with strategic urban research, which is really low, TRL, basically basic research, onward to applied urban research, which is applied research, and innovation and implementation, which is the next step, so to speak. Projects have to choose if they are either more research-oriented or more innovation-oriented. So this is a choice you make, and depending on that choice, you will end up in one of the ranking lists and will be evaluated by the experts. And my colleague Nicolas will also show you that the criteria are different for research-oriented approaches and innovation-oriented approaches. So what are we actually looking for? This is rather hard to answer. I tried to sum it up in one sentence, and I won't even read it to you. There are quite a few informations in the call text, especially looked into chapter 2.1 and 2.3 for further details, to get an impression what kind of projects we're looking for. But of course, it's holistic, it's inclusive, it's trans and interdisciplinary, it's transnational. We are a transnational partnership. It's impactful, and of course, it's urban. But you might find quite a few clues to actually get an impression within the call text itself. Well, and then we're basically at what I mentioned before. We had those rules that you must fulfill to be eligible for funding, and this is basically a two-layered cake. So we have the transnational criteria and all those national criteria beneath. And I will concentrate on the transnational ones, and will then hand over to my colleague to once again give you an impression of what national criteria could look like. So for the transnational eligibility criteria, you also find them in the call text as a summary and in more detail in multiple chapters. There's the rule that, of course, we're a transnational partnership. You need to have at least 3 independent legal entities applying for funding from at least 3 different countries, with funding agencies supporting the call. And in addition, at least 2 of those eligible entities must be from different EU member states or associated countries eligible for co-fund in this call. And don't worry, in the call text, there's also a list of countries that applies for. To actually be eligible, the main applicant must be eligible. So it's not possible to have a project within the call go forward if the main applicant is declared ineligible. there's a maximum of 2 proposals as PI, and you only may as person and PI apply once as the PI of a main applicant. As mentioned before, there's at least one urban government authority partner involved in each project, and this also can be as a cooperation partner with detailed LOE. And the maximum duration of the project is 36 months. Of course, your proposal must be submitted in English. You must respect the limits of the proposal form. You must submit it in time and before the deadline. And you may only submit a proposal in the second stage, in the full proposal stage, if you have actually been invited to the second stage. And of course, fundamental changes between the pre-proposal and the full proposal phase are not allowed if they're only initiated by you as an applicant. And please take a special care, as national and regional rules may be more restrictive regarding those criteria. And regarding the national rules, I would like to hand over to my colleague, Irene.
Thank you very much, Paul. I'm looking for my slides. If you give me just 1 second. I think, yes, as Paul has already been introducing the transnational project structure, where we have the transnational rules, but the national rules. So a DUT funded project will be formed by different partners that each partner is funded by a different funding agency that belongs to the DUT partnership. This means that every partner will have its specific grant agreement, reporting methods and payments with the specific funding agency. So in addition to the transnational condition, you need to take proper care about the national or regional conditions and procedures from your different funding agency. This means that the funding agencies will specify the type of eligible partners. It could be either a research organization, private sector, local authorities, NGO, SMEs. So just take care, because the different funding agencies fund different type of partners. Also, there will be different type of funding rates and different type of maximum fund and the type of cost that are eligible. The different funding agencies also can specify the topics of the fund that they will support. Not all funding agencies support all the topics, so this is very important. And also the type of research and innovation activities that are to be supported. Bear in mind that many of the funding agencies require its national or regional submission with probably different timelines. So it is very important that you check the respective funding agency annex in the call text, and not also your own funding agency, but I strongly advise you to check as well the nation that your partners are fulfilling with their own funding agencies, because the projects may be deemed ineligible. This is very important. And now with this, I leave the room to my colleague Elena, that she's going to explain how to submit your proposal.
Thank you very much, Irene. Hello, everyone. So nice to see such a nice and large number of participants. I'm Elena Simeon, representing the Research and Innovation Funding Agency in Romania, and I'm going to try to give you a few tips on how to use the submission system to make your application process as smooth as possible. So first of all, of course, you need to create an account in our submission system, in the DUT Submission System 2023. For this one, you go to this link. The link you can reach it both in the call text and also in the guidelines presented on the DUT website. Once you start creating your account by pressing sign up on our platform, you can follow the steps on the screen. The process is rather easy to activate your account. Of course, you need to make sure that you register your account with an active email. As said, you then follow the DUT 2023 submission link, where from you can start submitting a pre-proposal. From this screen, you can also access your application. So you can start a pre-proposal and save it and then return later to fill in and add information or consortium partners. Please bear in mind that only the main applicant can introduce information for the DUT Call pre-proposal. So the main applicant should be in contact with consortium partners to gather all the information in time and have it uploaded and inserted in the system. What it is important for you to know is that we make the registration of the partner of the consortium partners by using the PIC data. That's a number that the European Commission uses, and you will find instructions both in the submission system and in the submission guidelines on the website on how to fill in or create the PIC data if you don't have one. It's important to note that we use this to be able to ensure the data flow from our call to the European Commission system. What you will see is that once the PIC is inserted, automatic data will be imported in the consortium partners' contact data. What needs to be paid attention to is that even if the main applicant is the one editing and uploading information in the submission system, all the consortium partners need to confirm their participation in the consortium. So for this one, you need to add the partner using the PIC received from that partner and then send a message to your consortium partner by using the email of the contact person from that organization, sorry, and press send so that your partner gets a message by which that organization will confirm the participation in the system. Don't worry if there are some problems in receiving messages. You can see in your consortium structure overview who responded, who rejected by mistake, or who knows what's the reason behind, and who's pending. So if you have two possibilities to send twice this message, but in case some problems may occur, you can reach us in the support team and we will give you the possibility to send again that message. Please make sure you really fill in all the categories in the budget section. That's a very important area we have in our submission system. Make sure you have selected the right funding agency and make sure you choose the right research activity or innovation activity that's also eligible for that funding agency. So for that one, as Paul mentioned earlier, and Irene, you need to check the national funding agencies requests in Annex A. New to this call, we hosted the previous call too on our platform. We have created the possibility to nominate a contact point, a main contact point in the consortium from the same country. So for an example, if you have two partners from Italy, you have the possibility to nominate one of them as the main contact point so that the funding agencies know who to contact on behalf on the consortium in one country. Another new feature to our platform is that you can choose to have your project abstract published in case you reach to phase 2 and we apply the widening procedure, that is adding new partners to the consortium for the undersubscribed countries. Always press verify while working with your pre-proposal submission. So make sure you have filled in general information, financial information. This is the area, the upload document where you upload your PDF, and Nicola will give you information on that later. Please make sure you use this function all the time, because pressing verify will give you the chance to find out what's missing before pressing the final button, you know, when you submit the application. And I think that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elena. So as you can see on the screen, we are taking a break for 5 minutes. So if anyone has to refill their coffee, go ahead, since I'm sure everyone's heads are smoking from all the formal details. And afterwards, we will continue and look at tips and tricks and how to create your pre-proposal. But for now, see you all in 5 minutes. I think we deserve it.
Yes, Teresa, I would like just to jump here and just to remind everybody to use the questions and answer tool instead of the chat, because it's much easier for us than to track the questions and to give you a proper reply. So just this reminder.
That's a good point. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good point. Please be sure when you are asking your question to use the proper tool. So it's the one with the 2 speech bubbles and not just the one. So that way we see it. I mean, I am checking into the chat as well, and I'm sure my colleagues too, but yeah, the question and answer tool makes it easier, and it also allows others to upvote your questions if they also want to get the answer. So like Irene said, please use the right tool. And now let's get into the break. See you in 5 minutes.
Irene, do you tell me when I stop the share?
I will start sharing, and that's it. And you will be taken out from the screen.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you had time to refill your beverages, whichever one you may have chosen. And thank you again to all my colleagues who were before the break for these presentations. And I think now we will go ahead and look at the proposal template and also the evaluation mechanisms. So I think I will give over to Nicholas. Go ahead if you're already here. Yeah, there you are.
Thank you, Teresa. Hello, everyone. So first of all, really nice to see so many people joining the webinar. So on my side, I'm Nicolas Paulien, and I'm the representative of ANR, the French National Research Agency. And I'm going in the next few slides to come back a bit on the pre-proposal template to give you some let's say some reminder, but also in the evaluation criteria process and also some results that we got from last year. So Irene, next slide, please. I don't know if she, yes, perfect, thank you. So for the pre-proposal template, so first of all, the pre-proposal is available on the DUT website, so the 2023 DUT website since the opening, so the 1st of September. Just to let you know that the full proposal template will come later during the process. So for now, you can only find the pre-proposal template. At this moment, at this stage, we're expecting some crucial points that I will come through the next two slides. But I think it's important to mention first the fact that regarding the experience that we got from last call, to respect, one important thing is to respect the format requirements. So like the font size, the line spacing, the table, also that are within the pre-proposal, to not change the format of the table. This is very important to not do it, because we know that sometimes you would like to change the font size to save some space, but it will only penalize you. So please respect the format requirements. Also, we have a limit of pages, which is 13. So it's indicated within the pre-proposal. We have also a limit for some section, which are indicated as well in the text, and I will explain a bit more in the next for some section in the next slides. And like Elena said, there is all the detailed financial information must be filled in the online submission system, even if we will see it right now, you have to give one or two information about the budget. Next slide, please. So let's dive into the pre-proposal template. I won't go through all the section, but let's take a look first with the first one, which is the project overview. Just to let you know that this section you will have to insert again all this information. The main applicant will have to insert again all this information in the online submission system. For the pre-proposal template, so the first thing is you will have to tick the approach of your project. So of course you can mix within your project, you can mix both of the approach, but in the pre-proposal, we ask you to only select either the research, either the innovation, so only one of them, as well as the main translation pathway. So you will have to select one of the three translation pathway. It will be a bit different on the online submission system. You will have the possibility to choose a secondary translation pathway and even a tertiary translation pathway. And then you will have the call topics. To select the call topics. So in here, please choose all the call topics that are relevant to your project as well, even the secondary call topics. And then, like I just said, you have two space. You have some room for the budget at the end, at the bottom of the project overview. So one is for the total project cost, and the other is on the right is for the requested funding. So which means you have to indicate all the funds requested by the applicants that are requiring funds to the funding agencies. So this section is first section is included in the total page limit. For the second section, I won't I won't talk about it since it's only about the abstract, and it's, in my opinion, it's clear enough in the proposal template. So I will go directly to the third section, which is about the project consortium. This project consortium table does not count in the total, in the limit of pages, obviously, because it's mainly depends on the size of the consortium. So you can have a consortium of 3 partners or a consortium of 20 partners. So obviously, we won't count it in the total page. I just would like to mention for the contact person, please, it's better if you put the PI of the organization as a contact person, since it will be more useful and more efficient for us. In any case, we need to contact you in the co-secretariat to contact you. Next slide, please. For the 2 next sections, so we have the section 5 and section 7. So the section 5, which is about the expected outcome and impact. So we have a page limit, 2-page limit on this. I just would like to remind you that please take a look in the call text for this section, for this section 5. So you have a section 5 as well in the call text, which is the project implementation, which stated that all the participants that will have the project funded will have the responsibility. It will be mandatory to participate to some activities of the program. Namely, it will be the kickoff, the midterm, and the final event. So you have to keep this in mind. And I would like to add also that there is a subsection in the call text, so subsection 5.3.3, about the knowledge hub and its activities, that it's already important to consider a specific budget within the overall budget regarding the activities of the knowledge hub. So the activities are described in the call text. And it's necessary to think about it already at this stage, because there will be, it will be necessary to include a mandatory work package in the full proposal. So we know that you don't have so much room in the proposals template. This is a difficult exercise, but still you will have to inform some of the outline of the program, and you can already inform some aspect of the work package. So this is just to tell you to a reminder to about this knowledge hub, but please check the call text. It is indeed very important. And then the last section about the references. So this section is perhaps the section where we got most of the question last year. So we tried to make it more clear this year. So instead of having one big section references, we have 2 subsections. One about the references of the consortium and one about the scientific references. About the references of the consortium, please indicate at least 5 relevant references. So you need to stay in this limit of at least 5 references and the limit of 1 page. You can add more than 5 if you want. Normally there is enough space for it. And please also, if possible, add some information about these references, some detail, like how it's related to your project. And then the second subsection, which is the scientific references, is related to the state-of-the-art references. So namely, in the different section, for example, section 4, you will have to indicate some references, some scientific references. You can add it in this section to save some space in the text. So hopefully it is more clear this year. With these 2 subsections, we raise the maximum of pages from 1 to 2, so it should be enough for you to indicate all the references you wish. And, next slide, please. So now we are going to the evaluation and selection process. I'm going to give you a short overview of the selection process. So the DUT Call will follow a 2-step process. So right now we're in the pre-proposal stage, and a few months later we will enter the full proposal stage, where we will have more space, you will have more room to provide information of your project. You will have the opportunity to go more in depth for your project. All this pre-proposal and full proposal, so at both stages, will be evaluated by a panel, an expert panel, so international and independent expert panel. And the goal of this expert panel is to provide 6 ranking lists, as you can see in the table. These 6 ranking lists will depend either on the approach and on the transition pathway. So 3 ranking list per approach, which means 6 ranking lists in total. And in the end, this 6 ranking list will be used as a recommendation by the steering committee of the call, which represent all the funding agencies that are participating, to select the project that will be funded in the end. Next slide, please. So the evaluation criteria. So I think we're going to enter, like right now, just perhaps more boring presentation. I will go through the different criteria one by one, but just to let you know that the evaluation criteria is following the Horizon Europe criteria. So it will be used by the expert panel, and we have 3 main criteria, which are the excellence and intellectual merit, the impact and user engagement, and the quality and efficiency of project implementation. I would like to insist on the fact that all the criteria are equal. There is not a criteria that is more important than another. They will all be scored on 5. Each criteria will be scored on 5 to reach an overall score for one project on 15. So it's also important to know that each criteria are composed of different sub-criteria. So all not sub-criteria will be assessed during stage 1, since you don't have, like I said, you don't have so much room to go too much in depth with your project. So some will be only used in stage 2, and it is indicated it will be indicated in the next slide in italic, but also in the call text. And some sub-criteria also present some specific aspects, because it only depends on the approach. So either you will the expert will use criteria for the research, sub-criteria for the research, or for the innovation approach. Next slide, please. So for the first criteria, which is excellence and intellectual merit, we have 3 common sub-criteria which will be used at stage 1, and 2 common sub-criteria which will only be used at stage 2. So for now, we have the clarity and pertinence of the objective, we have the credibility of the proposed approach, and the soundness of the concept, and we have the added value of the transnational cooperation. You can add at stage 2 the clarity and feasibility of the project design and of the proposed methodology, as well as the identification of risk and mitigation plan. There is 2 sub-criteria that will be used specifically for each approach. So one for the research approach, which is originality and the contribution to new strategic knowledge, progress, and beyond the state of the art. While for the innovation approach, it will be about the innovativeness of the approach compared to existing solutions. Next criteria, please. Next slide, please. So the second criteria is about the impact and user engagement. So it means about the social impact of your project. We have 3 common sub-criteria which will be used here. All the other sub-criteria, either if it's a common one or dedicated to an approach, will be used only at stage 2. So the 3 common sub-criteria for stage 1 will be the relevance to the call topics, the integration of diversity and gender perspective in the project plan and goals when applicable, the engagement of stakeholders. So when we say stakeholders, is communities, the cities, the policymakers, the industries. And then we have the other sub-criteria which will be used at stage 2. So the effectiveness of the proposed measure for the dissemination and or exploitation of project results. While for the research, it will be the potential of the project to provide insight to an important societal issue. And then for innovation, it will be the market potential of the project and or the capacity to respond to a demand or a need. Next slide, please. And then we have the final criteria, which is the quality and efficiency of project implementation. So we have, in total, we have 8 common sub-criteria. We don't have specific sub-criteria for the approach here. We have, there are only 8 sub-criteria. 4 will be used at stage 1 and 4 more will be added for stage 2. So the 4 that will be used at this stage are the composition, the quality and suitability of experience and expertise of the consortium to address the project goals, the complementarity and balance of substantial contribution of partners, the feasibility and appropriateness of timescale, and the global value for money. The global value for money is here more to for you to answer the question of, are the costs realistic? If it's reasonable regarding the ambition of your project. And then we will add 4 more common sub-criteria at stage 2, which are the appropriateness of cost allocation, the appropriateness of the allocation of tasks and workloads, the appropriateness of the management structure and procedures, and then the consideration of regulatory and ethics issue when necessary. Next slide, please. And then, so now we are going to another topic. So quickly, I'm going to give an overview of the results from last call, from the 2022 call, and then I will give some last reminder for the 2023 call. So for last year, here are some results. At stage 1, so at the pre-proposal stage, we had 170 eligible pre-proposal, while at stage 2, we had 75 eligible pre-proposal. So it means that between 40-45% of the pre-proposal were invited to stage 2. For this, for both stage, we got between 60 and 70 experts involved in the evaluation process. And in the end, 48 projects were suggested for funding as it's indicated in the 2022 call. In the table, you can see a bit more the repartition of the pre-proposal at the pre-proposal stage, the repartition of the application. And you can see that one transnational pathway is a bit more, let's say, popular than the other, which is a 50 minutes in the research application. Otherwise, it's quite fair for the other, for the paid and queue transnational pathway. In any case, you can find all the detail on the DUT Call 2022 page. You already have a table which is available in there. This table is summarizing all the giving more info, more detail about the results, and it's per country, per funding agency, so it can really be helpful for you. At the same time, an analysis is ongoing within the partnerships, which is not published yet, but will be in the coming weeks. So it's important for you to keep being updated with the 2022 page, and the analysis is quite important because it will be based on the last year results, and will point out the different funding agencies that were strongly undersubscribed and oversubscribed. And it will be really helpful for you because you can. We recommend you to take a look with this analysis, since it could be useful in your process when you build a consortium. And like I said, for example, to take a look with some partners that are from the undersubscribed funding agencies, for example, can give you some clue to where to find new partners. So I'm not going to extend on it. You will have, in any case, more info in the coming weeks. So just be updated keep update with the website. And then for the and I'm soon finished for the 2023 call. So I think we already asked you to do it, and I will remind you one last time, but please to check your national annex. It is very, very important because yes, we have there are transnational rules, but there is also some rules at national level, and you need to check your national annex to see, for example, if your funding agency is supporting the transnational pathway that you would like to explore, the cold topics that you would like to explore. So please check your national annex. There is a national contact point at the top of each national annex. But you can also join the call secretariat. We are here for this as well at the email address that is indicated. One last thing is at the end of the evaluation process, which will happen by the end of February, early March, the call secretariat will inform all the main applicants of the results. So here, I would like to insist that we are going to send email to the main applicant, and it will be the responsibility after of the main applicant to contact all the co-applicants and cooperation partners to inform them about the results. So of course, last but not least, check on the DUT Call 2023 page where you can find all the info, the call text, the pre-proposal template, the video, the FAQ that will come soon as well. And I think it's okay from my side.
Thank you very much, Nicholas. I think that was a good overview. And now let's check in on the matchmaking platform. Go ahead, take it from here, Irene.
Thank you. Thank you. So we have already gone through the requirements of the consortium, but I can say that again, that we need three independent legal entities that apply for funding from 3 different countries that have funding agencies that are participating in this call. Also, 2 eligible applicants within the consortium must be from different EU member states or associated countries eligible for easy co-funding for this call. You will find this information, which countries and which funding agencies are participating in the call text. And for supporting of you to build or enhance your consortium, you can use the matchmaking platform, which most of you already know because you are connected through it. But anyways, here is the link to the matchmaking platform. This platform can be used in many ways. But here you can identify or meet potential project partners. You can register through the registration button, publish your profile, and I strongly advise to make it a very strong profile and very concise with what you can do or what you are offering. Also, you can browse through the profiles to look for what you're looking for. And also you can send and receive meeting requests. This is a very important tool because you can request meetings and have these conversations through the platform. So it's very important to create a strong profile so the people that are looking for you can find you. So describe very concisely what you can do and on the topics that you are, on the topics of the call that you are that you are interested in. Be active, look for meetings and mark what is important to you. Also, the platform can be used for attending events as this one. You have the national and regional events that are announced there. Also, they are announced on the website, and you can add them to your agenda and attend the meetings. So the next meeting here will be the next meeting organized by internationally is the second info day. It will be on the 10th of October, and there will be room for project pitches there. So you will have the chance to do a very quick presentation of your project idea or your expertise. It will be like no more than 3 minutes. So if you are interested in participating in doing a project pitches, you can go to the B2Match platform or either to the website and indicate if you are interested in project pitches. You have until the 27th of September to indicate your interest. And if you have been selected for project pitches, you will be contacted on the 30th of September with further instructions. So please go into the B2Match and start looking for your partner or for how to enhance your consortium. And here, Teresa, I leave this to you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so as you can see in the slide, we will then have an outlook, but I think first we have our Q&A session. So at the moment, there's only 2 open questions that I can see, unless there's one in the chat. But no, there's only 2 open questions that I can see. And one of them is maybe right back to you, Irene, is if more than 2 partners can participate in a matchmaking meeting, or is it just?
Yeah, sorry, I haven't been answering that because it's something that I need to check.
All right, so that's another thing. So we will, I think I said it in the beginning, but just so you know, we will, if there are any questions that we can answer now, then we will check them at the end, and then we will have the Q&A document where you can read it and you can look there. So for this question, the answers we'll check. Thank you, Irene. And I think the other question is being answered right now. And it is a very specific one for one project, so there's not so much interest in having it. So now there's no open questions, so perfect. So now I have one again, and that's what is the email to express our interest to make a pitch? Irene, I'll give this to you as well, since you explained it at the moment.
Yeah, it's not an email. You have to fill in a form, and the link for that form is either at the B2Match platform on the event or at the website on the information on the event. So you have to fill in a form, because over there you will specify the topic where you want to do the pitch, and then afterwards we will contact you with further instructions. So please go to the website or the P2Match
Thank you.
platform.
Thank you. So, and I am seeing in the chat right now that another one little introduction, and thank you very much for that. But we will, go right into the matchmaking session right after this. So let's focus on the Q&A for now. So if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat, of course, but if you want, you can also, ask them live. So just unmute yourself and jump right in. That's also possible if you want. But right now there's one that is, no, there are no questions that are not currently being answered. So if you have any questions, go ahead and shout them out. And if there aren't any, or you have something that comes up later, obviously, you can see right now on the screen we have our email address for the call secretariat. So if there is anything that you come up with after the meeting, then you can just send it to us like that. Okay. So maybe let's do this one. If we have a 500K project and a partner in another country, will the Italian partner receive its respective budget from its country or from the Romanian budget? So it's generally, and always it is like that the partner of the country in which it applies receives the budget from the funding agency in that country or in that region. So you receive your budget from your own funding agency, so to speak. So in this case, it would be that the Italian partner gets funded by the Italian agency and the Romanian partner gets funded by the Romanian agency, and it's like that everywhere. This is why it's so important to always check the national annex, because if you have you have to apply to your own funding agency, and this is why you have to also obey the rules of your own funding agency, because they're the ones who fund you. And so that's why you have to be eligible in your own funding agency. Also, let me remind everyone that you can upvote and any questions you see in the question and answer tool. So if you see anything that you're also interested in, upvote it, and then I can shout it out easier. And I don't have to read through it because, yeah. So I'm seeing one that's upvoted right now. So the question is, can the total funding for a project be higher than each country range if there are partners from different countries? And the answer to this is yes. So overall, the project has it's not easy to calculate the maximum funding of the project overall, because it depends on the maximum funding of the different partners. So if you have, for example, a project with an Austrian main coordinator, this does not mean that all the project partners only have the Austrian max funding. So it does depend on the max funding of your own agencies. So each partner has a different max funding if they're all from different countries, so to speak.
We also got one question on the relationship between driving urban transitions and Horizon, and this is something I wanted to actually answer live, because a driving urban transition is a partnership that is funded by Horizon Europe and the European Commission, and therefore also all of your project, as long as your funding agencies are eligible to receive co-fund, are co-funded by the European Commission. So this is the link. Basically, driving urban transition is a Horizon Europe project.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. I think you have to, yeah, exactly. Thank you, Paul. So that's a good point that we can just click on answering live. So I've seen a question that I will also answer live, which is that someone noticed that Poland, for example, was not a project leader last year. This is not because of any rules or anything. That's just how things played out last year. But it is totally possible for widening countries, like, for example, Poland, to also be project leaders. So if there are any partners from Poland who want to be project leaders, that's totally possible. That's just how it played out last year. So yeah. Okay. And the last question that's not being answered right now is if we need to apply to the national agencies independently. So this depends on your national rules. In Austria, for example, it is like that. You have to apply both transnationally and nationally to the Austrian agency. I know that some other agencies have this rule as well, but with different deadlines and so on. So once again, it is very important to check your national annex and to make sure that all partners are aware of their national deadlines, if there are any. So yeah, that's once again an example for why it's so important to always have the national annex in mind. So we have a question for about national sessions for national informations. So I don't know. I mean, this question in specific asks for a confirmed date for Spain. I don't know, Irene, if you know anything, but the general rule is to always contact your national contact points and ask them if there are any dates, because we don't have we do have an overview, but we don't have any details mostly that you don't have. So, but Irene, I don't know if you want to jump in, if you know anything. If not, it's fine. And I would just say, contact your national contact point. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, the national call is expected to be published by the beginning of October.
Okay.
But there is not a definite date yet.
All right. Thank you. So for this answer, we've got the answer, but in general, thank you, Erin. In general, it's contact your national agencies, and they will always have the best information, obviously, for you in these national issues and so on. All right. So I'm not seeing any. All right, so I've got another question that we can answer right now. The application on the international platform is done by the main applicant, including the budget of the partners. Elena, do you want to take this one on, since this was your section, or is this something?
I'm not sure that Elena is here, but yes, the main applicant have to do the submission on the international platform, and in parallel, all the co-applicant can just give all the information, like the budget information, to the main applicant that will insert within the online submission system.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you. So for the question that's in the chat right now about NGOs, so transnationally they are. Obviously, they are, I think, unless someone wants to correct me now, I'm questioning myself, but transnationally, I do believe they are eligible for funding. But the issue is, and that's the issue that I think the person who asked that other question asked, is that nationally it is possible that and it is the case that not all agencies fund NGOs. So once again, it's important to always check your national annex. And the social enterprise, which counts as SME or NGO, I think is also something that depends on your national rules. So once again, you have to check with your national agency, and if there are any questions there, always contact them. The contact details are all listed in the call text. So also, if anyone has asked a question in the chat, please switch it over to the Q&A tool, since it is easier for us to not miss them there, and it's easier for them to get missed in a chat. But we will, when we compile the Q&A document, also look at the chat just to make sure we haven't missed any questions there. All right. So, well, there are no questions open right now. So unless someone wants to jump in, maybe we'll give you guys some more minutes, and I will just briefly talk about the outlook, and then we'll check back if there are any more open questions. So as you can see on the slide that's being presented right now, the next important dates are obviously the second info day, which Irene already talked about, where we will have project pitches, so you can present your project live, and maybe tell the other people in the meeting what kind of partners you may be looking for, and so on. So it is more or less like a pitch matchmaking session, so to speak. This is on the 10th of October, and it will be in the afternoon, most likely. And I do believe you have already planned it for the afternoon, though the time frame may still change a little bit depending on how many pitches we we get that we have to include, or that we have to make time to include. And then the other deadlines Paul already mentioned in his section. So we have the stage 1 closing is at the end of November, and then we'll see. But I think the next very important detail is the info day 2, where hopefully we'll see a lot of you again. Okay, so, and you can also see on this slide useful links. So it's you see the website, and that the call text is available at the website as well, where all of these guidelines that we discussed today are in the call text, along with the national annex, which is also in the call text. And you can find it all there, very detailed and hopefully very understandable. Yeah, and matchmaking platform is also linked here. Most of you, like Irene said, are probably already familiar with it because you are there here through this matchmaking platform. But in case anyone got here through a direct link, this is the platform where you can find partners and schedule meetings and so on. And if there are any questions, you have our email address below. And now let's see if we have any questions. Okay, so we have one from a colleague in Austria. So if the other, so the question is, they are based in Austria and they are the main applicants, and they want to know if the other 2 partner countries should also apply nationally. So this depends very heavily on the national rules of the other 2 partner countries. So if their agencies also require a national application, then yes, and if they don't, then no, then it's fine if they only apply transnationally. So once again, it is very important to always check the national annex. So that is that. And I'm not seeing any questions that aren't currently being answered. So let's see, do we have a slide after this? Yeah, maybe let's go to the next slide, because this is something that we mentioned earlier. So since all of you are already on the platform, it would be a very good opportunity right now to go and matchmake and go and browse and go and look what's available and which kind of profiles you find, and maybe schedule a meeting or 2. So yeah, since you are already here, this is a very good opportunity, and hopefully you'll use it and see what's available and who's around in the community. And yeah, if any of you aren't registered on the platform yet, then maybe you can take a few minutes to register and set up a profile and get familiar with your colleagues in the community. And other than that, let's maybe go to the next slide. I wish you fun matchmaking and obviously also good luck with your application. And just before we close, I'm not sure if we're closing yet, but it depends on the questions. But before we close, there will be, when you close the meeting, there will be a survey that pops up. And if you can just take a few seconds to answer that would be great, because we need it for our monitoring for the call. And obviously you want to see what you thought of the meeting. So if you can just take a few seconds, it's not a very long survey, so it should be done quite quickly. But yeah, I'm not seeing any open questions. So hopefully everyone, this is because of now obviously a question popped up. And this question is, go ahead. I'm reading one. Go ahead, take your time. But the one that's already here, this depends on your national rules. So what specifically can be financed, that depends on your national agency. And once again, check the annex or check back with your national agency. So this is not something that we can say transnationally as a whole, unfortunately. All right. So. And like I said, you can also unmute yourself and ask the questions live if you want, if there is anything, if typing it out maybe takes too long.
Yes, Teresa, we are having some questions in the chat as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Hang on. I'll check in the chat. So there was one question about the topic of the project proposal, about age-friendly street design. I'm not seeing which topic or pathway this was linked, but as a general rule for such questions related to your project, and if they are relevant for a specific pathway or topic, this is hard to say, obviously, for us, and please, pathway coordinators, jump in if I'm saying anything wrong, but it is quite difficult to say with just such a brief sentence. So I would always recommend to familiarize yourself with the call text and read it quite thoroughly, and then when you have a more maybe based more on the call text and estimates, then you can always, if there are still questions open, you can check back with us under the email addresses that we listed. But other than that, it is quite hard to say. I'm also seeing quite a few introductions in the chat, so the matchmaking has already begun. That's good to see. And so, all right. So for the question in the chat, unfortunately, if your country does not fund a specific pathway, this is quite often the case. So there are quite a few countries or funding agencies that don't fund every pathway or every topic of every pathway. It is usually like that. That this means that you cannot be part of a consortium that has this pathway as a main pathway. So that's usually the case, unfortunately. But it is, once again, since you are mentioning your country, I would say check back with your national agency and ask them. This is also always very important to, in these situations, to always check back with your national agencies and just make sure, see what they say, because there may be some national quirks or whatever that we're not aware of. So. And the next question that I'm seeing is there an overview per pathway, what countries can or cannot be involved in a topic? Yes, this is also in the national annex. At the end of the call text, there's a table where you can see which funding agency funds which pathway and which topic. So this is available on the website. You're welcome. All right, so I think this is all the questions. I hope I haven't missed any questions. Like I said, it's a bit difficult, unfortunately, to get them from the chat and easier to miss.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I see that neighborhoods and the concept of neighborhoods are sort of transversely mentioned in all three pathways, but I haven't seen specific focus on the idea of the social cohesion and what makes the social bonding of neighborhoods and the concept of neighborhoods discussed specifically in either one. I'm just wondering if that's coming in the future, or is that something that would fit into all three, in your opinion? Or maybe 15 minutes, a bit more, but it seems like an interesting thing that we talk about neighborhoods in all three, but the actual cohesion of them isn't really strongly mentioned. So it's quite a conceptual question.
Thank you for that question. May I give this to one of the pathway coordinators? Is there one of you that feels like they can take over? Maybe. Go ahead.
The question of social cohesion in the PET topics, it should be represented, especially in topic 2, but also in topic 1. So it is a kind of a welcomed aspect. I can talk for the PET transition pathway, as the whole concept of positive energy district strongly builds also on local community building and working together and do this thing together. So it is absolutely an aspect in at least the first 2 topics on energy poverty, which is basically addressing also the question of social impact. And on the other hand, on the second topic that focuses on the existing urban neighborhoods. I can't speak for the other 2 transition pathways, but as you said, in the 15 minutes city transition pathway, it is probably very prominent also. So yes, please dig into that and connect it with the topic at hand.
So it might make a proposal more holistic in a sense.
That's the goal. Yes.
Thank you.
That's good.
I can add to that too, in saying that social cohesion is also a focus within the circular urban economies topics, and I would say also as spoke about a bit earlier too, that neighborhoods generally and also social cohesion are key areas of the call more generally too.
Thank you, both of you, and thank you for the question. I hope this answers it. And like I said, if there's any, things that still need to be cleared up later on, then we're always available via email as well. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions now that aren't being answered. So unless someone wants to jump in and ask one more, I think it seems like everyone's probably got their head smoking. So I hope you will check back in with us and with your national contact points if there are any questions. This is very important with them, that you always, also remember to check in with your national contact points, because there are just things we can't answer as a transnational consortium because we're just not aware of them on the national level. Yeah. All right, thank you. Then I think maybe since nobody's jumping in, I would say we are finishing a bit ahead of time. So this means that you could, use these last minutes and last, I think, half an hour that was planned. You could use this for matchmaking, like I said. So this would be great if you just check through the platform, look what you find, and maybe you can find a partner or two that would enhance your consortium and make the project even better. So until then, and until hopefully we'll see a lot of you on the project pitch day on the 10th. And until then, I wish you a very, very nice, matchmaking phase and project development phase, and obviously good luck with your application. And I'm sure it will be a very great success, just like last year's call. All right. So thank you to my presentators as well, and thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye. Good luck.
Bye. Good luck.
Good luck. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And I
Good luck.
think we
Thank
can
you. Bye-bye.
end
Thank
the
you.
recording now.